there's normally a delay. Now we're live, there will be a slight delay between Telegram and the channels. So let's have a look. Just going to share the notification on my Telegram so that people can also join from there. And then we'll do the introductions. Computer says no. All right, bear with me. Do love computers. Okay, right, let's have a look. And there we go. Message is coming through. Good evening, everyone. Today is Sunday, the 14th of September. It's 7 o'clock in the evening, and I'm joined by Shukeel Chohan, who we are going to have a relaxed discussion. And I would say hopefully sort of shed some enlightenment and knowledge of things that maybe some people may not be aware of, maybe have a look at the other side and share our points of views and opinions about current events. Before we do that, I just want to read a very quick disclaimer. This podcast is for information and entertainment purposes only. The views expressed are those of the host and its guest and do not constitute any professional, legal or medical advice in case we talk about anything medical. We make no representations or warranties regarding the accuracy, completeness or applicability of the contents discussed. The host and its guest are not responsible for listeners' expressions or actions. And we remind you that this is a podcast is merely for discussion purposes only, and I'm losing my voice already. Excuse me. Okay, good evening. Hi, Shukeel. Thank you so much for doing this with me. I really appreciate it.
Hi, Laura. Thank you for calling me and inviting me.
It's been a long time where we've been trying to arrange a chat together. So I don't want to take up too much time. I know you're a busy man, and so I'm just going to get straight into it. If you're watching this, by the way, and you'd like to share it, please do so. I'm going to start with, where are you from?
I'm from the West Midlands, Birmingham. I mean,
Right.
That's where I'm. Although if you saw me in isolation, you saw, okay, this guy's looking a little bit tanned. He's not really one of us, you know.
No.
My family, although probably your tan's better than mine, actually.
Oh, I've got the Costa del Sheppy tan, so yeah.
Yeah, your tan's looking better than mine. My family came here at the invite of the British government back in I think it was like the early 60s. My father came. He came by ship. It took him about, I think, nearly 3 weeks via the Suez Canal. And because the British Home Office at that time were going out to the Commonwealth countries and recruiting people to come in, because this was what, 20-ish, 25 years after World War II, and there was a lot of jobs to be filled. There was a shortage of manpower, etc. And so I think the easiest thing to do, perhaps for the British government at the time, was to go out and recruit people. And my dad told us, how the foreign, I think it was called the Foreign Office or something like that, off the Commonwealth at the time, and how they would encourage people to come here, because they told them it's like the streets are paved with gold. It's going to be absolutely fantastic, And I was the first child born here from my parents. I've got 3 older brothers and sisters who came with my parents, but I was the first one born here. Then I've got sort of 4 underneath me. who are also brought.
And how do you see England? Do you see
Probably
this as
one.
your home?
It's the only home I know. I've not really taken residence anywhere else. I don't have any other passports. This is all I know, really. I mean, I've travelled, you know, and been in other countries and several countries, but this is my home. This is where I
This
was
is your
born.
home, yeah.
This is where I was raised. This is where I was educated. This is where I learned the Queen's English. Hopefully, I speak reasonably good English, and to mix in with the native host community, to be part of it. And I remember one thing my father saying in the early days was that because he made a big sacrifice to come here. By the way, when he came here, he said the British lied. The streets weren't paved with gold. In those days, he said it was freezing, it was cold. They had this thing called smog. There was a lot of pollution. There wasn't much pollution control. Everybody had log fires or coal fires, and especially up in the north, in the northern counties. There was nobody had set. My dad came to Manchester, so I was born up that way. I grew up in Coronation Street land, basically, on the cobbled streets, a bit like the movie. In fact, if you watch the movie East is East, that literally phenomenal, hilarious comedy, but it's so real. And that movie is literally like my upbringing. Everything in that movie happened to us. We lived on those cobbled streets. We had neighbors. My family is mixed as well with English people as well. I've got an English grandmother, and my dad's got half English sisters, and I've got half English sisters. Two sisters who are still in Liverpool, and then all of their families. So we're quite a mixed family. So I'm not English, but I'm British. I can't be English because I think the English are the sort of the native white tribes. I call them the native white tribes, and I don't want to upset and offend anybody by claiming to be something that I'm not. I'm very, very cognizant that I'm not English. So anybody who says they're English when really they're not, they do need to perhaps correct themselves on that. By the way,
and do you still practice? Sorry,
I can't see
you can't see the
comments. So do
don't
let
worry.
me know of any sort of comments that do come up that might need.
I'm also going to look on Facebook because they don't all come up here. So do you still practice your religion?
Yeah. I mean, I was raised as a Muslim. I speak my own language as well. I speak Urdu, speak two other languages, Urdu and Punjabi, which are related languages. Read and write in Arabic too. So, although that's not so, I've lost a lot of that skill. But I also do English as well. So I'm very easy to get on with. If anybody wants a conversation with me in English, I speak at a reasonably good level of English, I think.
In your in the write-up, you are a coach, a sales and public speaking coach, and trainer. Trained also in I can't see it now. World affairs. So how?
It's something that I've taken
interest
interest
right
in
now. Yeah. So in your opinion, what is going on right now? Because the world's energy right now is so dense. Emotions are flying high. There's chaos everywhere. We know there's an agenda. So how would you break down everything that is going on right now, especially coming from a Muslim?
Yeah. So I tell you what I've noticed in the last couple, this is literally something that's sort of fairly unique. I'm in my 50s now, yeah? So I've been around a while. I was, a kid in the 70s. I grew up in the 70s. I grew up in the days of National Front, the skinheads, Paki bashing, they used to call it. What I'm feeling now, the negative energy that I'm experiencing right now, and not just me, a lot of people, wider community as well, this is more insidious, and actually it's a huge step back, because nobody, even in the days of the skinheads and the National Front, nobody ever said anything about my religion. Yeah, it
Really
was,
interesting.
it never came up. There was never anything about you Muslim or anything like that. Nobody was bothered. Okay, but in recent years, this has become the focus of people's attack,
Yeah.
and a lot of this is pushed by what I'm finding. It pushed heavily by the media.
Mm-hmm.
The way channels like GB News. I think what's happening is there's a lot of people who don't really understand the extent of the conditioning, the language that is used, and then what people repeat. Okay.
Yes.
So, for example, one of the big problems we're facing right now is the migrant communities that are coming
Yeah.
in very, what seems to be very substantial numbers. Although I was reading something else as a counter to that the other day. I mean, I don't know how real that is, what the real numbers are. That they represent something like is it 3 or 6%? So a small percentage of the overall net migration into the country. So the majority of migration into the UK is actually legal migration. And I read somewhere else that the numbers that are coming in are balanced by those who leave. So a lot
Right.
of
I
people who do
see.
come to this, a lot of people who do come to the country leave. Also, a lot of Brits leave as well. A lot of the sort of white native people leave. They go to Dubai. In fact, I've got friends, lots of them, who right now are living in Dubai, a Muslim country. Where
Would you say that we do have a problem with immigration? I mean, have you noticed
we've got a
in
problem. Yeah, I
Mhm.
personally look. I live here. I've got children here. I've got families here. Who we're raising. And I want the best for the country that I live in.
Yeah.
What I don't want is uncontrolled migration where we don't know who they are, where they're coming from, and what I see as legitimate grievances that people have. Because we've got people, and I don't know why, I do know why this is happening, because there's an agenda to create division. But when you have migrant communities being put up in 4 and 5-star hotels, to me, that is a problem
Mm,
because
mm,
we've got our domestic communities here. I'm speaking as somebody who's ex-military, by the way, where we've got a lot of soldiers, veterans who, I mean, they make up a big portion of the homeless community.
mhm.
And I find it's a big problem for you. I find it very problematic that somebody can come in within a few weeks of processing. They're at quite a nice hotel. In fact,
Yeah. Yeah.
I do events, I run events, I do workshops, motivational stuff, like you said, the sales training, public speaking coaching. I've had difficulty booking hotels, especially last year. Okay, now two of the hotels that I used to use, they've
Mm,
come back on board now, so I can use them. But I remember ringing up last year and being told the room's not available, the room to hire, because I thought after the lockdowns, I'll get back onto my workshops. And the lady on the reception on the phone said, it's because of, maintenance work. I said,
mm,
it's not really maintenance work, is it? I said, this is contracted out to the Home Office or whatever it is for migrant communities, isn't it? I said, that's really why
mm,
I can't book this
mm.
room. Okay, I want a training room that I wanted. And she said, well, I can't say that. Okay, so
Yeah.
she's
Yeah. Of course.
obviously, she knows what she can't
Yeah.
say. And in my mind, okay, yes, people come here. We have an obligation. Once somebody's on our territory, we have as humans, we have an obligation to look after people. But they cannot. It's wrong to put people in such expensive, luxurious hotels when
Mhm.
there are
Mhm.
plenty of places that can be used. There's closed down military barracks
Mhm. Mhm.
that can be used. If they were good enough
But
for
do you
soldiers,
think? Yeah. But do you think these people are coming from war-torn countries? Do you think that there is? If we had to look at why we have a lot of these migrants coming over and why we have the open borders, Would you say that there is a problem, or would you say that a problem has been created for an agenda?
Look, nothing happens without a reason. Yeah, countries don't go to war with each other because they hate each other. Yeah,
Mm.
and I'm speaking as somebody who's ex-military. Okay, and I mean, in my life since, what I've come to understand is there are powerful players creating destabilization in what I call what is commonly known as the global south. A lot of the developing countries, the Asian countries, the African countries, etc., and the East in general, and maybe some parts of the West, like some of the Latin American and South American countries. Okay, there is an agenda for destabilization. There is an agenda for economic rape of those countries, where
Mm-hmm.
the local people then don't have opportunities. And a lot of these countries have been hit by war. We heard from, I mean, there was a famous interview from, was it 2003, I think, General Wesley Clark, where he talks about going to the Pentagon after he's retired. And one of his previous officers who worked under him says, sir, we're going to war with was it Afghanistan? And then, sorry, Iraq. And he says, why? And he says, well, we've got a good army, we've got a big military, and we, if you've got a hammer, then every problem is a nail. And then there was a subsequent meeting where he spoke to him, and he said, it's worse than that. We've got 7 countries, and they're all North African and sort of Middle Eastern countries, Iran, Iraq, Sudan, Libya, uh, and Syria, and a few others, which they're going to take out. Yeah, and you've got to think, why? I mean, these countries are not at war with NATO or the West or the USA or the UK, but we have joined in virtually every single conflict that the Americans tell us to jump in.
Yeah.
I'd like to think we're a sovereign nation where we control our borders, we control how we defend our nation, okay, and where we control where our soldiers might go to die and fight.
Yeah.
Okay, not at the behest of somebody else, where it's got nothing to do with us. Not at the behest of people like Netanyahu from so-called Israel, demanding that the West take out his enemies. When they
Absolutely.
didn't send a single soldier to Iraq, to Afghanistan, to Syria, in those wars where thousands of NATO troops died. I mean, the Israelis didn't send a single soldier, but they were the ones for lobbying for decades for these wars. So many of these nations, they've been war-torn. They have suffered economic hardship. And here's the thing. These people, prior to this period of mass migration into Europe, they were not coming here before. So we've got to look at, why are they coming now? Why now? Okay.
Yeah.
And, and there is a criminal element there as well. Look, there's a criminal element in every community. Okay. But there's a criminal element involved in the trafficking as well. So criminals will jump in, and people who wish us harm will jump on the bandwagon too. But we've got to look at this, that this wasn't happening in the past. Okay. My mum and dad didn't come in on the bottom of a truck or pay human traffickers. Yeah. My dad came on a ship. My mum followed a year or two later by airplane, once he had enough money saved up to be able to bring her in, because he didn't want her coming on a ship with 3 little kids. Okay. Spending 3 weeks to get here. And the vast majority of us, the people I know, in fact, everybody I know, I don't know any illegals. I've seen them, but I don't know any illegals. But everybody I know is here legitimately. They're British citizens. They contribute to this society. One of the big things, sorry, let me carry on. My father said, remember as a young kid, he said, I made a big, and I was telling you this earlier, he said, I made a big sacrifice to be here. Don't let me down. Yeah. And do not give the people here, the English people, an opportunity to see you as a negative. in a negative way.
Mm.
Contribute, play your part. Okay. I remember once as a 5-year-old throwing litter out the car. My dad slammed the brakes. He said, go out there and pick that up. There's traffic on the road. I'm 5 years old. I mean, you get arrested for doing these things now. And I had to walk back like 50 yards to pick up the litter. When I got back in the car, he said, don't ever do that again. He said, you're being judged and watched by people. Yeah. And you're letting the side down. These are my dad's. I'm 5 years old at that time.
That's amazing. That is because you've got to sort of represent your family, your culture, and your values,
Yeah.
everything.
I mean, I was only
So
5, so I wouldn't have known any better at that time.
But it's a good
You know.
lesson to learn at a young age. And to be fair, most of our teens nowadays need to learn that lesson too. But, at the moment, there's a huge, and one of the questions that just come up, there's a huge divide between us all of us, okay, be it with religion, opinions, with everything's been just a huge energy that's dividing us, for whatever decisions we make. But one thing that I'm really noticing, and one thing that's, really getting to me is this divide and attack on Islam. And Islam is being seen as a cult, and it's not a religion. Some people are saying it's not a religion; it's a cult. It's terrorist. And I think we need to go back and maybe try and explain how it's got to this narrative and why people believe this narrative. And maybe if you could shed some light on this, why there's a huge attack, and what's happened in Israel. There's people that believe that Israel was broken into, even though the world knows very well that Israel is one of the most protected securities. They've got, impossible for even a bird to fly past them.
Yeah, it's got the most advanced technology.
Yes.
To protect its borders and keep the indigenous Palestinian people under oppression. Keep them caged in. I mean, they can't even leave. This is the big problem in Gaza. They can't leave. But let's just going back to what you initially said about the divide here, and let me take you back. Do you remember the days of the British National Party and Nick Griffin? Okay,
that's right. Yeah.
Now, as a youngster, I just assumed, because we had a lot of run-ins with skinheads. Okay, and the only reason they had a problem with us is because of the color of my skin. There was never any comment on religion. There was, I mean, not once. And we had a lot of fights growing up with the skinhead gangs. Okay, but not once did the religion come into it. There was just zero mention of it. Okay.
Yeah.
I then watched an interview of Nick Griffin. It might have been about 15 years ago, just at the time when Tommy Robinson was coming through. Okay, as an entity. Nick Griffin in this interview spoke about how he was approached by Israel and the Jewish lobby, okay, to stop talking about the banking system, the bankers, the Rothschilds, and just focus on the Muslims. They offered him huge amounts of money, and he declined it.
Yes.
Okay, because to him, the religion was irrelevant. Okay, my religion doesn't teach me to harm anybody. In fact, my religion says the death of one person, or the unjustified killing of one person, is like the killing of all of humanity. And saving the life of one person, okay, is like saving the life of all of humanity. We get a lot of people who take sound bites from idiots who don't know what they're talking about, and they'll put out a quote, or they'll take out partial sentence.
Yes.
And they'll say, hey, look, these violent people. Well, I could do that with the Bible all day long.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And show statements, especially the Old Testament, which is also part of the Christian faith, okay,
Mm.
where it is brutal. In fact, Netanyahu brought it up. He said, remember the Amalekites. Apparently, God told the Jews at the time to go and smash the heads of the Amalekites, who were basically the non-Jews at that time there, uh, including the babies, the children, all of them.
Mm.
And this is exactly what we're seeing in Palestine right now, in Gaza, okay, where not even children are being spared, because this is such a militarized and brainwashed society that they blindly believe that. And what I'm saying to people is that before you jump on the bandwagon of populist sound bites, maybe perhaps speak to a Muslim. The amount of people who make these comments, and I reach out to them on social media, like, have you ever looked into, did you actually check for yourself what was really said?
Mm. Mm.
Okay.
Well, there's a lot of Muslims that are speaking online
Yeah.
and saying that they are Muslims. They've been brought up Muslim, and they'll say things. And this is a great to discuss all this, saying that in the religion it says you're allowed to lie to the infidel, that you can rape their women, that you can, all of that you can genocide them, and
Are you
they
saying, did
claim
you
to
say,
be
did you just say Muslims are saying that, or people are saying that Muslims say this?
ex-Muslims are coming onto
Ah,
shows and saying this, yeah. And
okay,
so
I've got
it's
you.
got
I've
me,
got you.
yeah.
So,
And many of the people I speak to, obviously the Muslims I know, and I know quite a few, they tell me this is not true, that this is not in the book, and so on and so forth. However, including
yeah,
yourself, we are of the belief, and the belief has been spread online, and there are other people that claim to be Muslims that come online, say it's a very extreme religion, it's a very dangerous religion. And these are Muslim people that claim to be Muslim. They follow Islam, and they said that there's a lot of in the book that says that you can lie to the infidel, you have to lie to them, and so on and so forth.
I mean, this is comical because I've actually never heard of this. I mean, I've heard, I've never been taught this, and I've never read this. Okay.
Mm.
And I've read the Quran in Arabic, and I've also read it in English as well, just to, make sure that I fully understood, because it's written in very fine, high level Old Arabic, a bit like, say, like
Yes.
Latin, like the equivalent to, say, Latin, or
Mm.
Old Hebrew, original Hebrew, not the sort of the mixed up language they speak now, okay, which is based on a lot of Arabic and Yiddish and whatever, okay, and bits of Hebrew. So first of all, there's no such thing that is said in there, okay. What they're getting this thing about lying from is this, that if as a Muslim your life depends on, say, denying your religion, and there's certain circumstances that if your life and your health, so if somebody is, I don't know, they've got you all lined up, and that you're going to be harmed, okay, then at that time you can say, no, I'm not a Muslim, and we believe that we'll be forgiven.
Mm. Right.
Ordinarily just ordinarily to maybe to mix in with a bunch of friends to deny my faith, I'm not going to be forgiven for that, and I'm
Mm.
sure Christians would never do the same either, okay. So there's a lot of things that are misconstrued, misread, and now let me touch on these so-called ex-Muslims. Almost all of them have been debunked. I personally exposed one coming back about 7 years ago. Okay, he was a Pakistani guy. His name was Wasim, bald-headed guy. Okay, and I somehow, before, I didn't say anything because I followed his group, and I got involved in his group. His followers were all Jews, mostly Jews and Christian Zionists, not normal Christians. I'm talking about Zionist Christians. Okay, and so I got myself into his group, and then I exposed him, because for him, he was never religious. It was all about the money. He actually rang me on Messenger, and he says, will you stop saying what you're saying, because I'm making money out of this.
Oh wow. Yeah.
He's getting paid. I said, what do you mean? He goes, how are you making money? He goes, well, I sell them books. They pay for my travel. I go to America. I go to Israel. They pay for it all. Yeah. And you're causing me problems. Okay.
Yes.
And he then blocked me. Okay. After I'd sort of had a bit of a go and sort of try to expose him. This is a very common thread. Now, it's a bit like, imagine if I said every Christian is a Bible believing Christian who goes to church every Sunday, who prays in the morning and prays in the night before they go to bed. Well, you would laugh at me. Okay. Not every white English person does that. In fact, those who are actual Christians in the country now number about only 35%. 65% of native white Brits are atheists.
Yes.
So the Christians are outnumbered by 2 to 1 or 3 to 1, whatever the formula is. Okay, but substantially outnumbered by atheists. Okay, so now if I imagine if one of those, so-called Christians who's really an atheist committed a crime, and I said Christian fundamentalist, Christian rapist, Christian murderer, Christian thief, Christian criminal. Well, you see, this is what we suffer. This is what we get. So
I've got
with
a
these,
question.
yeah,
I've got a saying here. So there's a gentleman called Mohammed. Brother Shukeel, can you tell the audience how Muslims view Christians and Jews as the people of the book? What does that
yes,
mean?
yeah. So what people of the book means is, I mean, you may have heard of the term the Abrahamic faiths. Yeah.
Yes.
So the Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims, our religion all came from the same place in Palestine, in the Middle East. Okay. Jesus, if he was born today, he'd be a Palestinian. Okay. He'd be a brown-skinned Palestinian, not a white
That's right. Yes.
Anglo-Saxon or a Norwegian
That's right.
with
Yeah.
blonde hair and blue eyes. Yeah, he'd look a little bit like me. Okay. So the Abrahamic faiths, what we believe are the divine religions. These are the religions from God. Okay. Where we have the same prophets all the way back to Adam. Okay. Who we say was the first prophet. Okay. And so we accept the Torah, what we say the Injil. It's the Arabic word for the original Bible, not the Bible that you have today. Christ Jesus, he came with a revelation, but the book that you've got written by 4 authors, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, I mean, that's not a book or
No, that's
revelation.
not.
It's
That's
not a
right.
book.
Yeah.
It wasn't, those are not the words of Jesus. Okay, peace and blessings be upon him. Okay, so when we mention the names of prophets, we say peace and blessings be upon him. Okay, and his blessed mother. So for us, Jesus is, you cannot be a Muslim if you don't accept Jesus as a Messiah and as a great prophet of God. Anybody who disparages or insults Christ offends us Muslims. So when that film, the movie, The Life of Brian was made, okay, the biggest protests came from the Muslim community because it's an insult to our prophet. Jesus is my prophet.
Okay.
Yeah, he's very, very important. His name appears multiple times. In fact, in the Quran, our holy book, there's a whole chapter called Chapter Maryam. Her name wasn't Mary, it was Maryam. Okay, that's either the Hebrew or the Arabic. Okay, she is the whole chapter goes into her life, her story, her great rank. We consider her one of the 4 leaders of the women of paradise. Okay, so she's, out of all the billions of women this earth has ever seen, she's in the top 4 most revered women of all of history, of all of mankind. Okay, that's who she is to us, the mother of Jesus. Okay, because we consider her a blessed lady, and we respect and believe in the virgin birth. Now, I come across Christians today who no longer, they say they're Christians, they don't believe in the virgin birth. They don't believe Jesus was, suffered or whatever, okay, or was oppressed. And there's so many things. I'm thinking, you've deviated from your religion so far. How is it that you're still Christian? Okay.
Yes.
Now, and I'll tell you what, for me, and by the way, just to get back on that track there, so the Jews, the Christians, for us, we are a continuation. We see these revelations of a, it's like a trilogy, yeah. I don't know, like a 3-part Harry Potter, yeah. They're all part of the same. They're all part of the same message, because mankind was not ready for all the message to be delivered in one go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I'll just give you an
Okay.
example. Sort of when Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, came to this earth, he put a stop to alcohol, but not immediately. At some time, because he had to get the message out to people. He had to give
Yeah.
time for people to adjust. And so this is how or why the religion is delivered, with
Yes.
multiple messengers. You know, we've had thousands of prophets throughout time, throughout history, all over the Middle East. You know, and so you've got, I mean, St. George, here's a brilliant one. St. George, patron saint of England. Okay. He has a Turkish father and a Palestinian mother.
Wow.
His burial site, okay, is in a mosque in the city of Lod, okay, in Palestine, in the mosque compound. Why is that? Because the Muslims revered his courage and his bravery. They were in awe of this Christian man who stood up. He was a Roman soldier. He was in the Roman army. He, rather than renounce his faith, okay, he was executed and he took death. Okay. For the Muslims, they had tremendous respect for this. And so they provided a burial place for him. And they then built it was within the mosque grounds. Okay.
And England
So,
flies his flag.
yeah, I mean, a lot of countries do, because he was such an incredible character. He was a man of great nobility. Okay. And he made that sacrifice. So I personally don't have a problem with that. But I do like to remind people, you know, who have a hate on, I've been told, go back to your Middle Eastern religion. Well,
Yes.
St. George was from the Middle East. You know, he wasn't a blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy. You know,
Yeah.
he was from West Asia. He was an Asian like me. You know.
Right. We have got quite a few questions, and it's obviously there's a
Yeah,
very
fire them away.
mixed feeling here. For the record, I would just like to state to everyone that I'm not religious, so this is I'm very open-minded. I just don't like the religious wars. I've got a few people who are asking, can you swear the answers to my questions on your book? So what are your questions, Debbie? I can't see all the questions. Thou shalt not murder. I'm not able to see all the questions. Let's have a look. I think I've got to go back. What about Salman Rushdie's book, The Satanic Verses?
Yeah, I was a kid when I was probably a youngster when that came out, and I just didn't understand what encouraged him to be so insulting. Okay, fine. I think he grew up in a Muslim household, but he wasn't practicing Islam in any way, and he was living fine in India. And he moved to the West. Okay, and I think what happens is there are, just like I mentioned about certain people, they get sponsored, they get paid, they get supported, and
Yeah.
in my mind, and I think a lot of people have seen this as well, is that he was pushed and promoted. Now his book wasn't particularly groundbreaking literature, okay, but he got, what's the Booker Awards and all of that multiple
Mm.
times.
Oh, I see.
And there's
So
people
he
who are
got
much
very
better.
promoted.
Yeah, he was promoted and pushed. Why? Because he's pushing an agenda and he's making money on it, and he's a multimillionaire. And then he cost the British taxpayer tens of millions of pounds for his security detail when he was a multimillionaire who could afford to pay it himself. One of my friends was on a police officer on that security detail, and he was telling me, he goes, none of us are happy with this, because this man created his own problems and expects us to protect him at our cost. Okay, for many years he was in Britain and he was protected by the at the taxpayer's expense, and he's sitting on millions. He should pay for his own protection. He's moved to America now. I mean, I have no sort of feelings for him, so you know, whatever happens to him, I won't lose any sleep.
I have one which says, what about Surah? You've probably already had this quite a lot. Surah 929, which
On the
says,
top of my head,
do you know?
I can't remember what it is on the top of my head. What does it say?
It says, Yusuf Ali, fight those who believe not in Allah, nor the last day, nor hold that forbidden which hath been forbidden by Allah and his messengers, nor acknowledge the religion of truth, even if they are of the people of the book, until they pay the jizya with willing submission and feel themselves subdued. So fight those who believe not in Allah.
Yeah. So this is an example of another case of where the before and the after isn't put in there.
Right.
Okay. So what it says is reach out in peace. Okay. Extend your hand. Okay. And fight. And what it says is only fight those who fight you. So what they need to do is read the whole paragraphs and maybe read other verses too, because what it doesn't say just randomly go attacking non-Muslims and force them into submission, because I've never had to do that in my life. My mom doesn't encourage me and sort of invite me to do that. Okay, so it's not something I've done. It's not even my family who are in Pakistan do that, and we've got plenty of non-Muslims in. There's millions, you know. There might be 20-30 million non-Muslims in Pakistan. Okay.
Someone's made a comment. These verses were revealed at the time that the Arab pagans were fighting with the Muslims.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. So some of the verses were for a specific time. Okay, because when Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, came, he was, remember, the Arabs were pagans. They were idol worshippers. They were worshipping stone and wooden statues. Okay, and so when Prophet Muhammad said, look, stop this, we need to worship the one God of Adam, the God of Abraham, the God of Moses, the God of Jesus. Okay, he was oppressed. They attacked him. They would, I mean, he was, you know, him and his followers, it was only a small group in the early days, they were driven out of town. Okay, he tried to preach to people, because these people were barbaric, they were savages in a way. They would bury their daughters alive, you know, because a daughter was considered a burden. And so what happened was he put an end to that. Okay, he put an end to these warring, because all the different tribes were warring as well. You know, they would raid caravans for absolutely no reason and declare war on other people, other tribes, other Arab tribes. Okay, and what Islam did was bring peace to the region and stop all these wars and stop the ancient barbaric practices of idol worship and burying daughters.
What do you make then at the moment with what is going on? Because obviously the fight between Israel, and someone did say, as obviously you being an ex-soldier, what is the advanced technology in Israel where you can't break into Israel? You might be aware of it, but
it's the most. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, so the advanced technology of Israel, and why, if Israel, what is the advanced technology in Israel, and if it's so advanced, why was there a war? Why did we break in? What is the purpose of it? Because there are some people that believe the Palestinians or Hamas really did break into Israel, And then there are those like yourself who has military background and people that can put two and two together, as far as I'm concerned, that realise that you cannot break into Israel. So therefore, it was all created for a reason, and the real people that have been genocided are the Palestinians. So what? Because they believe that Palestine, the Jews believe that that's their promised land. So where does this come from?
So you got a few different issues there to tackle. Let me first tackle the first thing about the technology. Israel is at the peak of advanced technologies, robotics, AI, surveillance. All of our surveillance that we see here in the UK, all the camera systems, the vast majority are through Israeli companies, which are all linked to Israeli intelligence services. Look up, for those watching, look up Unit 8200, 8200. Maybe look up Low Key. He's a well-known artist, rapper, musician, but he speaks on geopolitics. And also look up Double Down News and similar channels, where you've got people who are going into great detail. Basically, what they've got, and this is by the words of Israeli soldiers themselves, ex-IDF, I call them IOF, because they're not defending anything. Okay, Israeli offensive forces. Okay, they have got. You cannot approach the barriers and the fences. Even a mouse will trigger an alert. On the day of on the day of 7th of October, the troops were told to stand down. The women who were mostly watching the monitors, these are all soldiers, these are not just civilians. I mean, every Israeli is a soldier, by the way. They have to join the military. It is a fortress nation. Okay. In the words of Charlie Kirk, it's a fortress. My apologies. Okay.
It's okay.
It's basically, in the words of Charlie Kirk, yeah, rest in peace. He's been there multiple times. He said the whole place is a fortress. It's a military state. Okay. You cannot get in and out unless you want them to get in and out. Gaza did have 2.3 or 2.4-ish million people, okay, who are not allowed out, not allowed an airport. It's their territory, okay. They've been there thousands of years, and the DNA studies prove this, okay. So when you've got soldiers speaking up and saying we were told to shut up, even to the risk of being jailed. Yeah, there are Israeli soldiers, female soldiers who've come forward and said this. All you have to do is go to the Israeli news media, because the Israeli media is more open and honest than Western media. Here, Western media is absolutely petrified of the backlash from the Israeli Jewish supremacist lobby. Okay. And if you watch Charlie Kirk's recent videos, it all becomes very evident of what he was petrified of. And he was as pro-Israel and genuinely hateful of Muslims.
I was actually just going to say, because I remember watching a video and he was against anyone claiming that there was an interview, a speech, and this gentleman was standing up to him and saying Israel are controlling the world, and you've got so on. And he was like, that's not true. He didn't believe in 9/11. He didn't believe 9/11 was an inside job, and there was all this, that, and the other. So did he then start to wake up to the fact that
I watched a lot of his podcast shows from the last sort of 2-3 weeks, and I'm absolutely staggered, yeah, in what he was saying. He was challenging Trump on releasing the Epstein files. That is a big no-no for the Israelis, because it's very clear for anybody with half a brain cell that Epstein, Jewish, was working for Mossad. Entrapment, an entrapment program where world leaders, famous people, powerful people, influential people are people like, look, our royal family member, Andrew.
yes,
even him. Okay. Trump is up to the eyeballs. I mean, Elon Musk put out a tweet saying not releasing the files because you're on the list.
Yes.
Elon Musk was appointed to a political position by Trump, and Elon Musk still said that. I was quite taken aback when Elon Musk put that tweet out, and I thought, this doesn't make any sense, because isn't he on his side?
That's what. Yeah.
But so what you've got is you've got a whole campaign of control, disinformation that's going out there. You've got people being manipulated. You've got people who are petrified. I mean, now it's all coming out. Close associates of Kirk were saying he was afraid he would be killed by Israel. I think and I've watched a lot of footage on Charlie Kirk, okay, all the different angles, and if you look at all the incorrect news releases, you know, they arrested an old bloke, grey-haired guy, yeah? He was shouting, shoot me, shoot me. He's on the floor. They've got, you know, their knee on him. And his name's George Zim, okay? He's also linked to pro-Israel movement, okay? And you think, why was he? I mean, they let him go because they thought, well, he's clearly got nothing to do with this, okay? He was released, you know, like within the day or so. But he was the distraction. And then we see a sniper on the roof. Okay. We see him jump off without a rifle. We can all see that. And then they find a fully assembled rifle in the woods, a couple of 100 yards away. And you think, well, how did the rifle get into the woods when he jumped without a rifle? Did he? And what they want us to believe is that he disassembled the rifle, because, you know, you can unscrew barrels and stocks and they can fold, they can cut apart and fit in a small package, you know, a small bag. And then he went to the woods, put it all together again, and wrapped it in a towel. I mean, this is what they want us to believe. Then I've seen footage since last night. I've seen footage of his own security team. Okay, different angles. You have to watch different angles, because if you watch certain angles, it looks like his security team are almost literally right behind him. They're not. They're about 5 or 6 feet to his flanks. Okay, and they are doing all sorts of signals. Okay,
that's right.
Some of those are very similar to British military field signals. Okay, they have their own hand signals, the Americans, but some of them are very similar. Okay, he's clearly, I mean, the guy's clearly messaging somebody. Okay, and then you see one, possibly two people on the right with what looks like, it's difficult to see, but one looks like he's either got something under his hand, and there is a technology that enables you to shoot somebody without looking at them through glasses that you wear, I wear, which is connected with, it's all got, I mean, we know microchips can be incredibly tiny, like pinhead size, okay, where the glasses have got a head-up display, so he can see what the camera on the weapon is looking at. So he doesn't need to be looking down the sights of his gun, okay, or looking down the barrel, okay. So we know this technology already exists. And in fact, the creator of that, I think his name was, who was involved in that, is Professor Brian Hudson, an American guy. Okay, hopefully I've got the name right, Brian Hudson. Okay, so we know this technology. Look, if they can, we've got very advanced military technologies that, just look at the mobile phone. How advanced is your technology on your mobile phone? We've got phones that can create AI to make you believe, somebody could airbrush me with AI and make me look like you and give you my voice.
Yeah,
and
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah, or grow horns on my head or whatever. Yeah, and you'd think it's real.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we know what special effects in movies can do. So I don't know how, but it looks like when that Charlie Kirk was shot, this part of his shirt moved. I've got a feeling the bullet went in somewhere here and came out here. So where the blood flows out, That's where I believe the bullet exited.
Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, look, he was divisive. Okay, depending on who you ask. For some, he's a hero. He was in his early days divisive. But here's the thing: he was beginning to notice.
Question.
He was questioning things. I personally was shocked and staggered at the extent that he would go to, and he was questioning, previously denying that genocide existed in Palestine. Okay.
Yep.
And now, yesterday, I saw figures released which estimate 600,000 people have been slaughtered in Gaza. 90% of the buildings are destroyed. The hospitals, the universities, the factories, the farms, everything is destroyed. And as many as 600,000 people now are dead. And 50% of those are children, women and children. Okay.
So disgusting.
So, and Charlie Kirk was asking questions. Charlie Kirk refused money from a direct request from Netanyahu to fund him. He declined it. And this is all coming out now. Candace Owens is going to do a hit piece on all of this. Okay. The Grey Zone, if you watch a channel called Grey Zone, Max Blumenthal, Jewish guy. Okay. Grey Zone is Gray, the American version of Grey. Okay. He's gone into detail on this as well. And where Charlie Kirk made it clear to his friends that he thinks the Israelis will kill him if he goes off script. Goes off script like Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson was never a friend of the Muslims. Okay, he was very pro-Israel. Candace Owens was very pro-Israel. Now she's openly condemns and exposes Israel. What's happened is people have had an open mind. They've shifted away from their handlers. Okay, and they're now starting to view things in a totally different way, and they're starting to see what they could not see before. They had the blinkers on, I don't know if I got distracted there, but
No, it's fine. Yeah, so basically we were saying that there's no way that you could actually break into Israel. So obviously it was all done by design, and
the troops
obviously it was an agenda.
Yeah, well, the troops
there was
stood
an
down
agenda
for 6 hours. Yeah, I mean, even Charlie Kirk said this. He says, "How can it be possible?" He said, I think this was on Patrick Bet-David. Patrick Bet-David is massive. Okay, he is an out-and-out pro-Israeli. Okay, he's a Christian. Okay, he's an Iranian Armenian Christian. Okay, a multimillionaire in the USA, one of the biggest podcasters. Charlie Kirk's on his show questioning the Israeli response because he said, "I've been there. How is it possible?" He said, "You can fly from one end of Israel to the other in 45 minutes. Okay. How do you have a 6-hour delay?"
Yeah.
And then all the lies we were told, I mean, all of it's been debunked. The beheaded babies, their mass rapes.
They weren't targeted.
Israeli police to this date have not got a single report or complaint to investigate any rapes. This is people have got to look at Israel. I watch Israeli media.
Yeah.
I go to their channels, and the Israeli media themselves are more honest than, what happens. They say, there was an organization called Zaka, a very extremist right-wing religious group, who put all this lies out about rapes and beheading babies and all of that. Okay. All of it debunked, all of it total lies. If you look at the way the Palestinian resistance has looked after, I mean, there were women, there were a woman and a daughter, when they were released together. They gave an interview. They said,
that's right,
when the Israelis were bombing and they said, "We're going to die," the Palestinian fighter said, "You will not die." They covered them with their own bodies.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I remember seeing this.
She said they protected us.
They were unharmed.
They were unharmed. They were given whatever food they had. They shared. Okay. And they looked after their welfare. They had no personal grudge against them. They said, "We don't hate you because you're a Jew. Yeah, your country is taking our rights. You have stolen our land."
Yeah. And we
You know,
know now from what Trump has been saying, there's that they're going to make Palestine the new,
Riviera.
Riviera, yeah. And but they're not going to bring the Palestinians back. They're going to move them somewhere else because it was all along the land that's allegedly promised to the Jews, but it actually isn't.
Well, for anybody who thinks the Jews or whatever you want to call them, yeah, this land is promised to them. You've got to answer me this question: how are white Europeans from Asia, where I'm from? Okay, because Asians look like me, yeah. We have different spectrums, you know. Some of them can be light. I'm considered fairly light. My daughter's even paler than me. Okay, all the way through to people who can be quite dark as Africans. But we've got a particular look, and you generally know who an Asian is.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, somebody from Poland, Ukraine, Bulgaria, Russia, Germany, okay, and whatever else in Europe, okay, Hungary. I mean, these people, their genetics, they've got no connection. Yeah. In fact, there was an Israeli professor, Professor Erhan Elhaik. Okay. Because of the research he did, he had to flee. He actually fled to England, and he's working at the University of Sheffield. He did he's a geneticist. His research showed that 96.4% of these Ashkenazi Jews, the white European Jews, they've got no connection to the Middle East. They have literally zero Semitic blood. So they're not Semites. So if you're being anti-Semite, it's the Palestinians, the Arabs, they're the Semites. Okay. And by the way, Arabs can be Muslims, they can be Christians, they can be Jews, there can be maybe 10 other religions there as well, but they tend to be the main ones. Most Arabs are Christians and Jews. And what I'm really disappointed with is those who go on the anti-Muslim bandwagon seem to forget as many as 25% of the Palestinians are Christians. Many of the fighters in the Palestinian resistance, in fact, some of the greatest Palestinian resistance fighting leaders were Christians who fought against the Zionist Jewish invasion. All these, and what happened was they came as refugees. So after World War II, they came into ships. All of Europe turned their boats and their ships away. Their ships were turned away from the USA, Argentina, even as far as Australia. They were turned away. They didn't want them. They came to Palestine. The Palestinian people welcomed them into their homes, literally shared their homes with them. Okay. And then in 1948, one day, these people who they've given their homes to, okay, turned against them. Imagine the refugees who come to the UK are secretly smuggling in weapons. Yeah.
Well, apparently they are. Who knows?
Well, I tell you what, I look at some of these people and I'm thinking, generally, if you've been in the military, you can look at somebody else and you think, soldier. Yeah, I do it all the time. 9 times out of 10, I'm usually right. Yeah. And when
Do you
I
think
meet people,
so?
no, they're not.
No,
No.
I don't
But
think so either.
no. I mean, look, yes, there are Afghans who worked with the British soldiers, and there's thousands of them who were very loyal they wanted the Taliban out. Yeah. So they were prepared to work with the British either as part of the National Afghan Army or as interpreters, fighting alongside the British and a whole host of other roles. Yeah. And working as trackers. I mean, there were literally thousands of them. The majority of those were denied access and entry to the UK as well, by the way. And many of them were slaughtered by the Taliban when the US pulled out and left $80 billion worth of arms and weapons behind. For what purpose? Why did they do that? Okay. So they fought for the Taliban for 20 years to let the Taliban win. Okay. And so we had maybe 1 million people slaughtered in Afghanistan. That's just in Afghanistan. Okay. So when people ask, why are they coming here? Yeah. Because their land is decimated. It's a miserable life out there. Yeah. They've had before NATO went in, the Russians were there. They've known nothing but war. All they've had is foreigners invading. Yeah, but none of them ever develop or do anything there. You know, and that's why it's also known as the graveyard of empires. You know, because the British Empire was there 150 years ago, and there were famous battles which, you know, eventually even they left the British. So we didn't learn our lessons that these are not people that are easy to. They don't have much. But when you're defending your own land, you don't need much. Yeah, you just need heart.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
you can overcome the most powerful militaries.
So what do you actually think now? Because obviously we've got a lot of, I mean, first of all, you know, we've got a lot of patriots, which I understand, and, you know, I support people who are
So
patriotic.
we're talking about the London rally yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there was a lot of people that went, and, you know, that's neither here nor there. They went because they believe, obviously, in the uniting, and it was a brilliant day. There was a lot of power. But, you know, to me, you know, I look at the people that lead the marches, the people that organise these marches, and I know who they are funded by. I know who they're very much supported by. They've even said it themselves that they are, you know, sort of they support Israel.
They're proud Zionists, aren't they? And they're with Israel.
Absolutely.
So,
and then we've got things at the marches which we saw that streamed. You know, you've got people chanting F Allah. So, you know, even though it was meant to be a peaceful march for uniting, you do have groups of people chanting F Allah. Then you have the other side, you had the Maoris ripping up the Israeli flag, the Palestinian flag. You've got the NGOs, the Palestinian NGOs that have been sent there to purposely cause further divide, which are not the true Palestinian people. So you've got a lot of chaos. Although you've got genuine people marching because they're fed up of the open borders and they believe that taking to the streets. So at the moment, all I'm getting is a really negative, horrible, dense feeling. And I just feel like part of me feels like the march, even though it's beautiful and I love, you know, all my friends that went there, it doesn't change anything for me. But I feel like literally hell's been unleashed in the UK. I can't help get that feeling, especially when people like Tommy Robinson say things that, you know, the UK is, you know, the world's, in fact, where was it? I've got it. I've done a post today that has now become, let's have a look. What did he actually say? I need to get my words right. I wrote a post about it today in his own words, which shocked me even more than anything. So he says that England is now the battleground for the world. So that word battleground in his own words, you know, it's like they wanting a battle on the streets. They want chaos on the street. They've got people chanting F Allah. They've got people ripping up the Palestinian flag. I mean, I didn't see anyone ripping up the Israeli flag. You know, there's just chaos. And these people are connected to Israel. They are led by these Mossad agents. That's what they are. So what do you think is happening?
well, look, you've just hit the nail on the head. I'm British. I'm born here. I've worn the Queen's uniform. Okay, I don't know how much more I have to do. Yeah, the average Brit has never worn the Queen's uniform. Okay, and never will. I did, and I'm not the only one in my family, by the way. And within my wider relatives, there's more. Okay, so but what I'm seeing in London is people are frustrated, and there are legitimate grievances. 100% legitimate grievances. We have got a cost of living crisis. You cannot see a doctor. Yeah. By the way, all of this was happening before this mass migration thing with the boats, but things are getting worse. The average person cannot buy a house. Yeah. You know, the average, you got a young couple who could be earning, I don't know, whatever's the national average. It's probably approaching 30K now. Yeah. So imagine you've got two people, young couple on 28, 29 grand a year, nearly 60K between them. They cannot put together a sufficient deposit to purchase a house. They're then forced into renting or living with family. And if they're renting, they're paying. I mean, I'm staggered at how
It's
extortionate the
extortionate.
rent stuff.
It's extortionate.
Extortionate. It's gone way beyond any levels of inflation in recent years. Okay. And we've got an economy that really, where our manufacturing is destroyed. Destroyed by who? Destroyed by the regime. See,
Yeah.
I hear a lot of people going, oh, he's a lefty. You know what? It doesn't matter, left or
It
right.
doesn't matter.
They are both the same. They
That's
serve the
right.
same agenda. They just have a
That's right.
different color.
Yeah.
I'm so disappointed at the level of people's intellect. And what happens is people are easily divided, generally people with lower intellects. Okay. But they're divided by people with higher intellects who've got a self-serving interest. Okay. And so what I've seen is a lot of people, legitimate grievances, but like you said, led by who? Divisive people like Nigel Farage, multimillionaire. He doesn't give a damn about your life living in a small terraced house, trying to afford to run your car because the man's a multimillionaire. He's a banker with a W. Okay. And he lives a whole different lifestyle. He ran off when the Brexit thing, and he told us how many hundreds of millions. I don't know if it was a good thing or the right thing, but whatever he promised didn't happen. Yet we didn't suddenly get millions of pounds for the NHS.
Yeah.
I was speaking to
Yeah.
somebody today, and even, by the way, I'm thankfully I've been healthy all my life. I've been natural all my life. I've been to the doctor, I think 5 times in probably in the last 40 years. Yeah. Generally for broken bones and things like that from, you know, climbing and mountaineering and skiing accidents. Okay. Or sprains or whatever. But so I'm not a drain on the NHS, and I don't want to be, because I don't smoke, I don't drink, I'm not overweight. Okay. I look after my health. And that I think is a responsibility. First of all, what you've got to do is you've got to take personal responsibility. I
Yes,
don't
of
blame
course.
anybody else. I don't blame anybody. If something's going wrong in my life, and it has done many times, I take the responsibility for it. What I don't do is look
Yeah.
for a scapegoat. And whenever there's
Yeah.
times of economic trouble, the minorities become the scapegoat because the regime want you to believe that Mr. Mohammed or Shukeel, yeah, and his family, yeah, or Vladimir from Eastern Europe is taking your job.
Yeah.
Yeah. He with his degree has taken your job, okay, your factory job that you declined to take. You won't pick fruit in the field. In fact, there was a documentary where a bunch of long-term unemployed English people were asked to come off the dole and work picking fruit
Yeah, they
in
won't do it.
fields. And none of them lasted more than 24 hours. They packed up and they went home. And they said, no, we're happier on benefits because they weren't prepared to do the
Yeah.
hard work. Now, I'm
Yeah.
not saying all English people are like that. I think the English generally in Europe are amongst the hardest working people as an average. But we've got a very significant number who are long-term unemployed. They've got no drive. They don't want to do anything. And it becomes very easy to mobilize those kind of people to become the front line, the flag wavers, okay, shouting obscenities and insults at other people. Now, first of all, the Palestinians have never done anything to England. The Muslims here, and in fact, somebody put up a post, somebody from one of my own friend circle, yeah, who I actually know, put up a post talking about the Muslims want to change our way of life, and they
That's right.
want to.
Sharia law, and they're trying to impose Sharia law. What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, Sharia just means law. Okay, the word so it means like law. Sharia law is virtually identical to biblical law. Okay,
Right.
we have no desire on imposing I mean, first of all, there is no legislation or law that imposes Muslim laws in the UK. It's not allowed. Yeah, this is a democracy. Okay, and we're
But what they're
talking very.
saying is that this, the word on the street, should we say, is that Sharia law is about women covering up and, um, you know, lots of other things that will take away
Oh,
our
because I've heard
freedoms,
about
not being,
Sharia law courts. Okay, so
because we're not
I
meant to dress in a certain way. And
well, here's the thing: you can dress. I mean, it's a free country. Dress how you want. You know, if you wanted to walk around in your bikini, fine, do that. You know,
but
that is
if they were to implement this law, if they're saying that they're trying to bring this law,
nobody.
Sharia law, and then we wouldn't be able to do that, and they're trying to take away and
So,
to wear face coverings and stuff like that.
well, the only way we could do that, right, is if the majority of the MPs were Muslims. Yeah, there's maybe a dozen or 2 dozen Muslim MPs out of 650 MPs. Okay, so please, dear petrified person, don't worry. Yeah, because if out of those 2 dozen Muslim, I mean, I don't think there are 2 dozen, but I'm just saying, let's assume there are. Okay, if half of them are so Islamic, okay, and practicing Muslims who observe very, very observant, okay, want to put a bill through Parliament, because it'd have to go through as a bill through Parliament, okay,
Yes.
it's never going to pass because you've got a lot of atheists in Parliament, you've got a lot of Christians, and you've got a lot of Jews in Parliament, okay, and maybe a bunch of Hindus and Sikhs as well. So you can relax. There's never going to be Islamic law here. You don't have to worry about having your hands cut off if you steal, or being beheaded if you're a paedophile, or being taken to the market and shot in the back of the head because you abuse a little boy or a girl. Okay, which does happen in some Muslim. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. Okay, I think if you commit those crimes, you deserve the. By the way, this is Sharia law. So when I say you don't want Sharia, so you don't want extreme sanctions and penalties for rape, murder, robbery, theft, fraud, the worst crimes, the crimes that really damage society. Okay. So all of these, oh, no, we don't want that. Well, then you want prisoners and criminals to have an easy time, you know.
So
So,
I've got here
yeah,
a book, The Clear Quran. It's only a small book,
yeah,
and it says, what is Sharia law? And basically, it's a little write-up, and it says Sharia mainly aims at protecting 5 things: 1, life; 2, honor; 3, freedom to practice one's faith; 4, intellect; and 5, property.
yep.
Therefore, there are punishments in Islamic law for violating any of these rights. Every country has punishments for offences, even though the penalty for the same crime may vary from one country to another. To say that Sharia is all about chopping people's hands off is like saying that the American law is all about killing people with the electric chair.
Yeah, so that's really good, Dave. I'm glad you've got that there. You said it better than I did then reading that out.
And also, non-Muslims living in predominantly Muslim countries are free to follow the personal laws of their own faith. Of the 57 Muslim countries in the world, the great majority are mainly secular, not Sharia based.
That's true. So where you've got majority Muslim populations, because their Muslims are not the only people living there, yeah,
They have to.
they have to accommodate for everybody. Otherwise, there'll be tension. So they don't impose some of the, like a lot of the Muslim rulings, because they accommodate everybody. Okay, so what happens is you get extreme right wingers like the Tommy Robinsons, like what's that ugly woman with the big
Katie
beak, Katie Hopkins.
Hopkins.
Okay, yeah, who come out with all this nonsense, and then there's a whole bunch of others as well. And what they do is they speak very eloquently. These are highly educated people, some of them. Okay,
Very well trained. Very well trained.
very well trained. They go off and do the courses. Okay, and they go and get groomed. They get very, very well funded to push the hate on Muslims. Like I said before, as a kid growing up, we had run-ins with skinheads all the time. Not once in my life did they ever mention religion, and we had a lot of fights. Okay, I never had that. It never even. It just never came to my mind, and it was
Yeah.
never something that was said. Okay, and that would have been the time for if people were there was a lot of racism then. That would have been the time for people to make that attack. But
Yeah,
I'm
they
thinking, and then
didn't.
you've got to ask why now? What's going on right
Why?
now?
Because it's all being pushed right now.
It's
Yeah,
all being pushed.
absolutely.
It's all, you know what it is? I tell you what, I grew up as a kid watching movies. So, I'm going to give you an example. Hollywood movies. Okay. At the time, when I was a youngster, I didn't really understand what was going on, but I found it a bit odd. I'll give you two movies examples where what they would do is they would make Muslims look like imbeciles, okay, or violent, aggressive, terroristic thugs.
Yes.
There's one movie was what's it? The Back to the Future. Marty
Okay.
and the Professor. Very odd. And you think, why is this even in the movie? Marty and the Professor are sitting in the car in the DeLorean in a car park. Okay, and I think I can't remember the movie. It was a long time ago. Yeah. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a camper van turns up with an open
That's
top.
right. Yeah.
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 And they've got machine guns and the
Yeah.
Arab scarves on, the kafirs. And I'm wondering, well, what's the connection? And
Yeah.
they have to press the buttons and go, okay, and
Yeah.
go back to the future or whatever. And I remember thinking, a bit odd, but why? It's only as I got older, the whole idea was to create a negative attitude towards Muslims because
Towards Muslims. Yeah.
because they're preparing for wars on Muslim lands,
Yeah.
steal the land,
Absolutely.
steal the resources, put puppet governments in place. So
Mm.
most of the Arab countries, because you often hear, oh, why aren't they doing anything for Palestine? Because the leaders who are in place are
Yeah.
American and British and French mainly installed. These are the three main global superpowers installed by these countries. The
Yeah.
puppet leaders are installed. The people are not with those leaderships. They want to take action. Okay. And then the other movie was Raiders of the Lost Ark, where there's a scene where he's being chased. Harrison Ford's being chased through some Arab village or whatever, and there's two Bedouin dressed men with, like ninja. You just see their eyes, okay, and they're doing some amazing fancy sword work, okay, and they're in front of him. They've been chasing him, and he just pulls out his gun and he shoots them, okay. And again, I remember thinking, in real life, you wouldn't be chasing a man with a pistol, with a sword.
No. Yeah.
You go home and you go and find a gun and then
Yeah.
maybe look for him. And again, it's only as I got older, I laughed at the time. I was like everybody else, it's funny. Okay. And then when you get older, you start seeing what's happening.
What's
There's
happening?
all this conditioning. The Muslims are the idiots. The Muslims are the enemy. They're the barbarians. They're the savages. But it's the West that has been doing the killing, which has slaughtered 20 million Muslims in the last nearly 40 years, where they've interfered in other countries and
Yes.
gone and bombed them, generally at the request of Israel. And then our sons do the killing and dying. And then they're the ones who commit suicide because they struggle to live with what they've done.
Absolutely.
Okay. Where our soldiers should be here protecting our borders. American
Exactly.
troops need to protect American borders. Okay. And if we didn't do all these invasions and destroying the economies and the lives of people around the world, they wouldn't need to be fleeing. Because they were happy
That's
before. They
right.
were not fleeing. They would be busy building their own nations, but there's nothing left to build.
Absolutely.
You know.
Absolutely.
So yes, they're not all fleeing war. Some of them are fleeing economic disaster because there's no hope and opportunity, or very limited opportunities, because of sanctions and because of the theft and rape of resources.
I've got a question here from Richard. Not sure if you can see on the screen.
RJ, I
Can you
can't read it. It's too
explain?
small for me to see.
No. Can you explain the category of Muslim you define yourself as compared to the 2 billion Muslims on earth?
The category. Oh, it does. Perhaps you might mean sect. Okay.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know. He might have to clarify. Muslims have got multiple sects, just like Christians. You've got Catholics, you've got Orthodox, you've got Church of, what do they call it? Anglicans or Church of England. And there's like a whole host of evangelicals and Unitarian Christians and all of that. Yeah.
Okay.
In Islam, we also have different schools of thought. Okay. And you've got the main Muslim group are the Sunnis. The next biggest group is, which myself, we're Shia Muslims, mainly centered around Iran, Iraq, Bahrain, Lebanon, Yemen, and the east side of what is today Saudi Arabia. Okay. And we're about 15% of the 2 billion Muslims. So about 300 million. Okay. Then you've also got a Salafist sect, which is perhaps the smaller sect, maybe 50 or 100 million. Okay. And this is a whole different story. Okay. We probably need a separate podcast on that, where we have a problem with them. And they have been the ones who've got involved in by the Western creations of Al Qaeda and ISIS. Robin Cook, MP, I don't know if you remember him.
Yes.
Shortly before he strangely died, and he was a fit, healthy guy who would walk on the mountains almost daily with his dog. Suddenly has a heart attack and dies up on a mountain. Okay, he famously said, everybody. I think what he said. I can't remember his quote word for word, but I remember watching it at the time and thinking he's in deep trouble. Okay, and then a week or two later he's dead. And he said, everybody knows that the Western intelligence agencies are responsible for creating all these so-called Muslim or Islamic terror groups. Okay. And these people, they are mercenaries. They're essentially, and most of them couldn't quote even a single, forget a whole chapter or a verse, they couldn't quote a single line of the Quran. They don't pray. These are people who fight for money. Okay, just like any other former soldier who becomes a mercenary and becomes a soldier of fortune. Okay, where you were living on $100 a month and all of a sudden some foreign government is paying you $1,500 a month. That looks pretty good. Yeah, and then when they give you Captagon, which is a drug that you inject into yourself, okay, and it makes you lose emotion and feelings, and it makes you do the most horrendous things. And we also, I don't know if you remember seeing footage that was coming out of Syria and Iraq. And what the world was being told is, look at these Muslim savages. But all their victims were Muslims. Al Qaeda, ISIS, and the likes, 99% of their victims were Muslims.
Yeah.
They never once attacked Israel. These so-called extremist Muslims never once loaned a bullet to the Palestinians to defend themselves.
Yeah.
So when people talk about, what type of Muslim are you? I'm not that type of Muslim. And the majority are not that type of Muslim.
So there is a divide within the religion of different religions, if you like.
I won't say divide, but there's different, just like in Christianity, you've got different sects. Look, you had Northern Ireland, they were killing each other, Catholics and Protestants. Okay. So that can happen in any religion. It happens within Hindus, it happens within Sikhs, with Buddhists. I've seen, if you all you have to do is just look it up. And do people of the same overall religion have disputes with each other? And can it sometimes get a bit ugly? Yes, it does. And it can do. Okay. I can't actually see
He said thank you. No, he said thank you.
Cheers, brother. RJ Short is a really a well-learned man. He's a good chap. In fact, I was with him just a few weeks back under unfortunate circumstances at the funeral of Sam Goody, who was an amazing name in the truth movement and the anti-lockdown movement. And we sat next to each other for a couple of hours during her funeral.
It's yeah, so it is absolute devastating. That it's really, really sad. But so yeah, that's really interesting, because I didn't realise that there is a divide. Oh, I've got a cat toy going off. There is a divide in the religion itself, like we have here. There's sects of religion, like you've got the I didn't realise that.
Look, there's so many, and look, there's, for Muslims, just as an additional aside, a Muslim cannot harm another person unjustly, and the only justification is if you are being threatened and you are being attacked.
Right.
So anybody who harms an innocent person, they need to be brought to justice. So this is, anything like that is totally against the religion. And unfortunately, the average person, because they don't do the research, because they're told by people, and look, here's a screenshot, by people who appear to look credible, I've done the research, or I'm an ex-Muslim, and I've already talked about these so-called ex-Muslims who never were. So many of them been caught. So many have been caught out. In fact, you just go to YouTube, look at all the ex-Muslims debunked or exposed, and it's literally all the big names that come up. None of them know the prayers. None of them know the basics. Look, my children, imagine if you had a 7-year-old. Can you comprehend this? The Bible is a very complex book at very high level English. And it's a huge, thick book like this. The Quran is exactly the same. Imagine if your 7-year-old had read the Bible page to page by the age of 7, and was able to even recite maybe a whole chapter. A whole chapter might take an hour to read. Well, we have that.
Yes, but my understanding is the reason you have that, from what I've learned from speaking to many different Muslims, and obviously not just yourself, but my understanding is that it was written, the original, the Quran, was written in such a poetic way, in your own language, which again really can't be translated, because once something gets translated, it loses that flow.
Meaning,
yeah, exactly. Lost in translation, you lose the energy, the flow, the meaning, and sometimes you just cannot find the right word in the language. Correct. But this is what I was told by a Quran scholar, that the Quran is written in so poetically that it flows. It's like a poem which has to be written in that way, and so this is why it's so easy.
It is, in
for
fact,
children to learn it.
In fact, I was watching a video on Instagram the other day from a Christian guy, and he asks ChatGPT, is there anything written like the Quran? And ChatGPT's answer is, there is no other book that comes close in the eloquence, in the way it's written, the meanings, the power of the words that
it's because of the way. I mean, look, Anne-Marie Foster Robinson and Debbie Thomas, I'm really sorry, but I honestly think used to have been extremely rude. And this gentleman here has been trying to share his religion, what he's grown up with, his knowledge, which is far superior than yours any day. And you guys have done nothing but attack rather than actually listen and ask decent questions. Anne-Marie, you say that you see it's been altered.
If they wish to,
Honestly,
if they wish to ask me something,
disgusting. No, it's actually disgusting. It's an embarrassment to be on a live and have a conversation. We're trying to have an actual conversation to be able to discuss, debate, and share. And you two have been so ignorant that it's actually an embarrassment to me. Now, Anne-Marie, you say it's a lie. It's all been altered. So prove that the Quran has been altered, because have you ever read the Quran in its original language?
You know what,
It's just absolute ignorant people. A Muslim
Laura?
has admitted to you, a Muslim has admitted it's been altered to me. She said that a Muslim has admitted the Quran's been altered and that we will never be able to read it.
Bring that Muslim on, and invite him on. Look,
I'm not the
the
one making
oldest.
the claim, Anne-Marie. I don't need to prove it. You're the one that's been absolutely childish and ignorant. And I've so
Anne-Marie,
had enough of you and
can
your
I just?
absolute childish statuses as well. Go for it. Sorry.
Yeah, let me thank you for that. Let me address Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie, if you're listening, do reach out and feel free. I'm not a monster. I'm quite human. I won't behead you or anything like that. Okay, or send you a jizya tax bill. Okay.
Honestly, it's just so
The,
pathetic.
the oldest Quran in the world, the oldest known Quran, is in Birmingham University. Okay, it's dated within the lifetime of the Prophet Muhammad's lifetime. Okay, and it's identical to whatever we have today. Now, the Quran was left in the archives for decades. It's maybe even a couple of centuries it might have been here. It's very old. It's like virtually 1400 years old. Okay. And when it was analyzed and looked at, you can look it up, the Birmingham University Quran. Okay. There is no change. It's written, it's written in what they call Kufic script, which was Iraqi Arabic, but that's the only difference. But the words, the sentences, everything still remains the same. The Quran, the reason why we memorize it, okay, and many of our children, in fact, one of my good friends, his son is only, what is he, about 13, 14 or something like that. He's just completely, not just read it, memorized the whole thing. Imagine being able to memorize word for word perfect, the Bible.
It's impossible.
There isn't a single Bible scholar who knows even one chapter, word for word, from memory. Okay, we have throughout the Muslim world millions of people, right from a young age, who memorize it. Okay, and the reason for the
Because of the
memorizing,
poetic
because it's that, but
flow.
also because if we have this thing that if the Quran was destroyed, you'll never be able to destroy the words because we know them and we
That's
pass them on.
powerful.
We pass them on through the oral tradition, and that oral tradition has remained the same. The most famous non-Muslim scholars of Islam, these are non-Muslims who studied it and studied this phenomena, all agree that the book that we have today is the book that has been there from the beginning. Okay, and there was a famous French professor. I think his name was Professor. What was his name? Farrason. Okay, he was a scientist. He was a university professor. He actually became Muslim on the back of reading the Quran. He said, "It's a phenomenal, incredible book." Since the Gaza invasion by these white European Jews, okay, who are not from the land, the number of Muslim converts has gone through the roof, despite their attempts to defame Muslims, okay, to make us look like savages and make us look like backward animals and all of that, and violent beheaders. The number of converts has gone through the roof. And these are people who've not been approached by a Muslim. They've seen with their own eyes the steadfastness, the incredible faith. Because when you see these people in Palestine and Gaza who are being bombed and they're burying their children and babies, not once have you seen them showing anger and hate towards Jews. What they've done is, we thank God that we have had this time on this life, and I had this 6 months with my baby, or my 5 years with my little son. Yeah. And God is the best of planners. I don't know why I'm in pain, but I don't know why my Lord has taken my son away and put us through this difficulty and this challenging. But whatever it is, God knows the best. These are the words that are repeated. And the biggest percentage, or the biggest group of these converts, are white European women. And I've been staggered. I've met so many, especially on social media, Instagram, on TikTok. You go to TikTok and it's on women from Scandinavian countries where You know, I mean, I've actually spoken to some of these people. I said, who did you speak to? They go, no. Do you know any Muslims? No, I don't know any Muslims. So if it was this violent, bloodthirsty religion that is designed to force you all, by the way, Islam says, the Quran says, there is no compulsion in religion. You cannot force. So we can actually marry Christians and we can marry Jews. Why? Because they're people
Interesting.
of the book. I cannot force, if I had a Christian wife or a Jewish wife, I cannot force her to leave her religion. It has to be her choice. Why? Because we consider them people of the book. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, wrote a letter to the monastery of St. Catherine. Okay, because they're in Egypt. They were under the Islamic Caliphate control. And the letter stated that no Christian will be harmed, so the Muslims believe we have a special bond with the Christians. Most Christians aren't even aware of this. So we have a special bond because of this letter, essentially. And what it said was that no Muslim will harm the Christians, will interfere with their faith, and then interfere with them going to church or anything like that. If the Christian community cannot afford the maintenance of their holy places, we Muslims will pay for that.
Right.
Yeah. The Muslim government will pay. And the monasteries, that by the way, that letter still exists. That the monks still have that. It's on the wall. You can look it up and see it.
So do you have churches in Muslim countries?
Thousands.
You do.
My parents went to a church school, a Christian mission. Yeah.
So like you can build a mosque here, Christians or Catholics or whatever can build churches in your country, in Muslim countries.
In Pakistan, I think there's about 3,000 churches or something like that. Yeah. So there are, and in Pakistan and India, there's thousands of churches. There are millions of Muslims in India and Pakistan. Okay, there's a lot of Muslims in India as well. What I'm saying, because it all used to be one country before the British split it up and divided us. Yeah, this is also part of the, create the divide and conquer thing. Okay, so my parents went to a Christian missionary school. Okay, and would tell us about it. The nuns run the school. There were English nuns in there, running the school, and they spoke very fondly of it. Those nuns never had any problem, and those schools are still there. In fact, I'm with a friend of mine. I'm doing some fundraising for a Christian church in Pakistan. There's a good friend of mine, and I'm going to be doing a personal development event evening with him to raise. The target is to get about 10,000 quid together. I'm not a Christian. This is a church in Pakistan, because it's actually near where my family live. I thought, fantastic. My relatives back home. So I've even told them about it. And they say, yeah, we know this church.
Yeah. Do you know what? We have a lot of, see, like I said, I'm not religious, right? I'm respect everybody's beliefs. You believe what you want. For me, it's what's in your heart, and you live in peace. You respect your neighbours. You follow certain, rules to life. And I have an interest. I like to learn. I like to listen. And what I notice is, like COVID, and this is what gets me about people who probably don't go, past half a mile of their homes, and they've never travelled, and they're sitting here online and making judgments when they've never even read a book themselves. But the point is, I see and meet decent people from every single walk of life, every religion, every colour, and I spend time with them. I get invited to meals. I get invited to their homes. I work with them. And then I'm hearing on this, news, Islam's a cult, paedophilia, Islam's is paedophilia, Muslims are paedophiles, blah, 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 blah. And then I'm thinking, well, hold on a minute. I've just had dinner with a beautiful family who have treated me with respect. I can see that they're, and I'm thinking, okay, and they're not the only ones, and this, and then I know loads of them. And I'm thinking, so have we not learned something from COVID, that what we see in the news is not necessarily what's going on our streets. You know, when we saw that the hospitals were in the news, that the hospitals were overrun, and then I go into the hospital and everything's switched off, the whole building's dark because there's nobody there. Have we not learnt by now that we should be witnessing with our own eyes and not what we're hearing on the mainstream? Because all the immigrants that are coming over that shouldn't be here, they're not, they are the problem. There is a problem, but that doesn't mean that the everyday Muslim living in this country is the problem. And I don't see that. Now, there is a
This is,
problem with immigration.
yeah, you know, this is where we, as a sort of the established immigrant community, and I don't like to use that term because I only consider myself an immigrant when the issue comes up. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I'm as British or almost, I'm not English, you know, I'm clearly,
Well, that's like me.
you know,
That's like
in fact,
me. You know, I'm
I was gonna-
I'm from Sicily. I'm
you're a
Italian, you know, and
Sicilian.
at the end of the day, yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't ever sit there and think, in fact, to be honest, you know, I actually don't think myself as anything. I live in England. I'm a woman. I don't actually think there, oh, I'm English. I don't sit there thinking I'm English, I'm Italian. I just live. I just live.
And by
I'm
the
not.
way, the southern Spaniards are heavily influenced and mixed with the Moors, the North Africans, the
That's right.
Arab,
Yes.
yeah,
And
because of
my background,
yeah,
they what
800
did
years.
Phoenicians as well. I think
Yeah,
background of So
Phoenicians are Lebanese. Yeah, who are the Lebanese? Yeah,
apparently that's what I've got, because for being from Sicily, there's Phoenician background, there's Tunisian, there's African, there's it goes like that. So I just can't understand how we can hit to the streets and not even hit to the streets. I mean, we're following these idols, but that's just neither here nor there. Whatever comes of that will come of that. But what we're hearing in the news and what is being spread online, the hate, the divide, and I'm not seeing that with my everyday people. I'm not seeing that with the people I meet. I don't walk in fear. I don't live in fear of
look,
these.
the majority of British people, as far as I'm concerned, don't have these thoughts. They don't say these things. I don't go down the road in fear, okay, of being attacked by somebody who hates me because oh, sorry about this. I don't know why this thing
So
keeps going.
I've got my little cat toy
Okay.
going off, and you got
I can't switch it off because I can't see it's a little radio clock, and it's got the digital display's gone, so I can't actually work out how to switch it off. So, so look, the average person, as far as I'm concerned, out of I think the hate mongers that you see that are sort of lionized and televised, they are a tiny minority. And I've always said that, because we sometimes speak to people in other countries and family and relatives back home. How are the English people with you? I say, you know what, they're fantastic. I say the British people are amongst, because the Brits have traveled all over the world and they conquered, a huge chunk of it. Okay. Although they weren't always very nice when they went out there, and were quite violent with the empire. But the British people that I've grown up with, because I was born here and what I've seen, are amongst the nicest people.
yeah, yeah.
Everyday people who would never harm a fly, and don't judge people for being different, for being a different religion or being a different color. Okay. But there's a massive upsurge in this by a certain particular group. And what I saw today, was it the London rally, the Tommy Robinson rally? Was that today? Was it, or yesterday? Yesterday. And what I saw there were, to be honest, I mean, very concerning. You've got speeches on stage by people who are not even English. People who've come from Poland and other countries. Okay, making speeches on English stages, telling the British that the Muslims are a threat, that they're going to take over. Well, look, I go to the mosque a couple of times a week. I've never once heard this lecture where we've all got to get together and take over the country. I mean, with
but
what?
Apparently you could be lying.
I could be lying.
Because you could be lying, apparently.
Maybe I've got a secret weapon, or I've got I've got a missile silo parked, one that I took from the army, or a tank.
You could be
that I hid.
lying, but Tommy Robinson isn't.
He's
Remember
not
that.
lying.
Yeah, no.
The,
Apparently,
the,
because you're Muslim, you could be lying and you're entitled to lie. But Tommy Robinson wouldn't lie. No,
well,
Katie Hopkins wouldn't lie.
well, the grifters, those two grifters who had money from Israel lobby, okay, from the Israel lobby, okay, and people like what's the guy in Canada? The he's got a media channel, okay. Ezra Levant, he's the owner of a media channel, who pays these grifters, and they get well paid for it, 10,000 a month. You know, I wouldn't mind getting paid 10 grand a month for grifting.
I know, right? Exactly.
To stir up shit and hatred and whatever. And you got to ask yourself, for those people who are still like the two names you mentioned of these two ladies earlier on, I still call them ladies, by the way, even though they may have said nasty things to me or about my people, or my community. Not my people. We're all one people, okay.
And
but
this is what people are forgetting.
Yeah, we're all. Look, when COVID happened, we were all in it together. I stood shoulder to shoulder with you, with people who are black, mostly white people, who had the balls to stand up. My own community is very compliant. I'll tell you something now. I would get complaints from the mainstream English community. Why aren't your Pakistani or Indian or Asian community with us on this anti-COVID lockdown stuff? Haven't they got the courage? I said, you know what? Our community generally are very compliant, and they don't want to rock the boat. So I said the majority are not like me. They're not prepared to stand up, and because they believe the government. Okay, they believe these jabs are actually going to protect your life. They do. And I remember going to a wedding with about 500 or 600 people, and almost everybody, by now, this was like a year into the lockdowns, okay, and we're in a bit of a gap from the lockdowns. And I remember being there with 500 odd people, and I was being ridiculed for, why aren't you taking the jabs? You're a conspiracy theorist, okay? Because they were all, I mean, this, I didn't want to go to this wedding, by the way, because of the protein and the spike protein shedding. I got very ill after that. My whole family, we were sick. My wife ended up in hospital, seriously ill. I lost 2 stones in 2 weeks after attending that wedding.
Crazy.
Because I got infected by breathing in all the shit that they were expelling, all the excretions out of their skin and their breath. Okay. But my wife said, look, it's a close family. It was her relatives, so I blame her. But, you know, she goes, it's a close family wedding. We have to go. Nobody in my family took the jabs. Why? Because I made sure. Okay. But on her side, they were a little different, a bit more compliant. But my own direct family, brothers and sisters, I think 1 or 2, because of their husbands. One was a doctor. He thinks he knows better. Okay.
Yeah.
They only know what they're doing.
At the end of the day, it's coming up to the 2-hour mark, so we're going to have to finish soon. At the end of the day, I know it's just flown. I wanted to have a talk with you live, and thank you so much for being here. And I'm sorry for people that have been rude. I don't mind if they can ask a genuine question, but most of these questions have been absolutely insulting, and I'll let you go through it later. And if you decide to answer in the comments, then please do. But I would say that the ultimate playbook here is that we are all being played against each other, and this is what I'm trying to bring to the surface. We are all just being used COVID. Against each other. Exactly. And so
just like COVID, where the people who were asleep they had so much hatred for people like you and me who were asking questions and rightfully cautious about taking an untested concoction. Miracle, I call it, you know, the miracle concoction. We knew, if you did a bit of research, these so-called jabs and similar things can take decades to produce. They came up with them in 8-9 months. and then they wanted us to take them. And some of us who had a brain and were able to do research decided, no, I'm not a monkey. I'm not going to be experimented on. Okay. But we were in the minority, and minorities
And
always get attacked by the majority,
absolutely.
because we have herd mentality. And so what's happening is the two ladies you mentioned, I've got nothing personal against them. I don't think I know them. Okay. I'm sure they're not connected to me as friends, and those others. What I would say to you is speak to us, ask us. Don't go to a website that tells you this is what they believe and this is what they do. Speak to us and we'll tell you. I was born here. Yeah, I served
I
in the
have a
military.
question.
Yeah.
I've just noticed a question. I'm sorry if I've missed all you guys. I haven't seen all the questions because it's going so quick. What's both your options on moving forward after this London gathering? They will call to build a bigger one now. Will you support, and if not, why? Me personally, I won't be supporting at all because I do not follow the devil, and I have other ways that I believe we can fight this, and which I've mentioned before. There's many ways that we can do this without having to go to London, without bringing revenue to London, without following Zionist puppets. Debbie, if you want me to ask the question, can you just please drop it in now because I keep missing it. Please ask a genuine question without trying to attack. I
Bring I
believe
tell
that
you what,
we
if they
need.
want to come on,
Yeah,
why don't you do this? Give them the opportunity to join us on, because I think you can add more people, can't you? And if
I have to send
somebody's
the
really,
link. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if somebody
So
really wants to come in, yeah, I know we're sort of hitting 2 hours now, but sorry, what was the question about?
yeah, so will we be supporting and going, and what do we see? So for me, home strikes. That's what I've mentioned before. Don't feed the corporations, because again, we've got to understand the difference that we are living men and women. The government cannot tell us what to do. So the only way the government controls us is through carrying the dead coffin. We are carrying dead coffins, which is the corporations. They are corpse. We are literally holding the corporations up as though we're carrying a coffin. And what we need to do is put it down for 3 days. So that means do not fund. We go on a home strike, and we do not fund the corporations, because then it will impact the government. We are the pillars to the government, the in-betweens, the corporation. And the reason why I believe this is going to work is because most of these people in power have got shareholders, they're stakeholders, they've got investments in the corporations, such as all the big ones like Tesco's, Sainsbury's, all of them. And if we bring 3-day strikes, do not shop, do not feed into the BP garages, don't fill your car, don't go out, only do local family run businesses, I think that would have a greater impact than going to London. But the only difference is here, I don't have the power, the funding behind me that Tommy Robinson has. So I can't get the message out there like he can. So I can't get the numbers. However, there is someone who is trying to do this. And I think it might be I'll share the video at the of this guy on my Facebook, and I think he's doing one for the 6th and 7th 2-day strike. Someone's already on this because they can see that this is what we want to do. There's other ways of doing it that doesn't involve following Pied Pipers. That's my opinion. No, I will not be going to any of these rallies because I can't go against my truth. I can't go against my heart, and I will no way whatsoever unite or follow the likes of Tommy or Katie or anyone else that's led by these people. But I do not have anything against anyone that's gone, and I respect everything they do.
I think, you know what, on that, there's obviously different. Oh, sorry. You got another question? Can I just comment on what you just said there?
Yeah, go. I'm just holding a question here. Go on.
Yeah. So I think, in London, was there a lot of genuine people who are concerned about what's happening in the country and where there's no control of our borders?
A lot of
100%.
people were absolutely genuine. Yeah,
genuine people who are concerned. And guess what? I've got kids here. I've got family here. My business is here. I'm born here. I served in the military here, so which is probably more than a lot of people who are watching here today have done. Okay, am I concerned? 100%. Would I go to a rally that has people in their ranks going up on the main stage calling me an intruder and an invader? No, I wouldn't. Okay.
And these are the same people who are being funded by the people that have committed mass genocide in
Yeah.
Palestine. These
Yeah.
are the same people that have
You've got,
killed.
you know, listen, Charlie Kirk, he was considered, I mean, the guy who just got shot in America, very, very sad. Okay. Because I actually used to enjoy listening to him, even though he was confrontational. But in the last few months, he changed very dramatically.
Yeah,
He was
he knew what was happening.
he knew what was happening, and he woke up at the end, and this is why he was taken out. And there's going to be some revelations that are coming out because the Israelis had reached out to him to say, take our funding, okay, and he declined. And he was now,
Yep.
and if you look up, just watch the videos, you know, anybody who thinks he was always a hate-filled man, no, he wasn't. I think a lot of what he spewed out in the early days, it was genuinely hate-filled. I think in more recent times, I saw a massive shift and transformation. And some of his friends have already commented that he had confided in them that he was petrified that he will be dying, he will be taken out. Okay, and who took him out? A white conservative, because I think initially they were trying to put out. I mean, that idiot, the Israeli prime minister, who's taken on a Hebrew name, Netanyahu, whose real name is Milikowski. Yeah, he's from Poland. He's a Polish white man. He's not from the Middle East. Yeah, Palestine or so-called Israel is not his land. Okay, he's a white European guy who changed his name to sound Middle Eastern, but he can't change his face and his features and his skin, and he's never going to have a permanent tan like me, or even like you, Laura.
Oh, me.
You've got a nice permanent Mediterranean tan as well. Okay,
This is a paddle boarding.
in fact, your tan's better than mine.
Trust
And
me. You know what? If I haven't got it here, but if I put a scarf over my head, I actually look like I could be from an Arab country.
you probably do. And so
I've got the question, Debbie's question. So when you're ready,
yeah. So I just wanted to finish off on this. So you've got Charlie Kirk, who was considered a very right-wing person, you know, racist, you know, who wasn't very friendly towards non-whites, basically, and non-Christians. And he used to make that very clear. But there was a dramatic shift in literally in the last couple of months. And when I'm watching the interviews, especially one that he did with Patrick Bet-David just very recently, you can see he's visibly scared. He even says it because he pauses and he's like, I think he says something, I'm not too sure if I should say this, and then he just says it. Then he's also on video with, I think it was 2 days ago, with Ben Shapiro, or 3 days ago. Ben Shapiro, well-known Jewish guy, right-wing extremist, okay, who's taken over his organization. Okay, read into that what you will. And he's raising his eyebrows, very disapproving of what Charlie Kirk is actually now saying, because he's not towing the line. He's not towing the line against the Palestinians, the Muslims, the brown-skinned people. Okay. And you can see Charlie Kirk's disappointment very, very, and I don't know how he's come to become the head of Turning Point USA now. Okay, I don't know what the involvement was, but he's now leading it. We've also got one in the UK, Turning Point UK, right? Who actually offered them an interview and they declined. I think they'd seen some of my content and thought, we can't have this guy speaking because he's speaking sense, and you know he's going to undo all the negative work that we're doing. You know, because we need to create hatred of non-white people, Muslims, and people.
it's completely dividing. We're not seeing the higher hand at play here, that we're literally puppeting both sides and creating all this hate. Right, I'm going to give you Debbie's question before she gets the ump with me. Can you swear, this is the question that, can you swear on the Quran that if your mosque called war, you would not be forced to obey?
Say that again. If your mosque was...
If your mosque called you to war, that you would not be forced to obey?
That I would not be forced to obey. War against
Yeah.
who? I mean, bear in mind, I was a British soldier, okay? If my government called me to war, I'd be forced to go, and I would have to go.
Well, I'm a bit
To
confused
defend
about
my
the question
country.
myself. No,
I'm a bit
she
puzzled.
said your church, your mosque. I didn't realise that mosques were the ones that called you to war.
Mosques have got no connection to calling it. It's a non-entity.
Here
It's
it
a
is.
non-existent question.
Here it is. Can Shukeel swear on his Quran that if his mosque called war, churches don't normally call wars, he would not be forced to obey?
Do churches call for war? I
I
mean,
don't
the
think
mosque
they
is just
do.
like a church. I mean, no
Well, I
mosque
didn't
is
say it
ever...
wrong, Anne-Marie. I'll put it on the screen. You can have a look on the screen for yourself. That's what the question
It's a
was.
very odd... You know what it is? The question shows ignorance. Okay. And what it shows is it shows the mindset of the person asking the question and what their intentions are. First of all,
Mosque leaders do. She said mosque leaders do.
I personally never come across one. Do some Muslims maybe call for the wrong things? Maybe, yeah. And but I've never been to a mosque in all my life, and I've been to many mosques in the UK, across the whole country, and in other countries. I've never heard of this. Okay, I'll give you an example of the last sermon that I had was about honoring your parents, doing good, making your contribution to society. Don't be a long-term unemployed. Get a job, contribute, run a business, work, earn a what we call a halal living, meaning a
Yes.
just living. Don't steal.
And would you fight for England? Would you fight for England? Or would you fight for... This is the question.
Oh, would I fight? I was a soldier. What more do you want me to do?
I know, that's what I was just thinking. It's like they've not listened. I mean, you was a soldier in a British army, right? Yeah. And this is my whole point. I've had to put it out there because Anne-Marie has asked, would he fight for Britain, Laura? So, and I'm just thinking, clearly you haven't watched or listened
You're not
to
listening.
what you
know
said.
What? She's so stuck in her head, this hatred, this anger, resentment, that you're not listening to what is being said.
I know, and this is exactly what I'm dealing with, because they're just not hearing.
I'll tell you now, if the Americans invaded, I would be back in uniform. Yeah. If the French invaded, I'd be there on the front lines. Okay. So I will defend my land and my country.
Yeah.
This is where I'm born. I don't really know anything else. Okay. So this is where I served, and this is where I'm born. Okay. I'm too old now, but
Anne-Marie, I don't understand what you mean. What about Islam? He just said to you that he would fight for this country. He served in the British Army. He's born here. He still practices his religion. He's still a Muslim. He still practices. He still read the Quran, and he's trying to explain to you that not every Muslim is a bad Muslim, just like not every Christian is a bad Christian, or Catholic, or whatever. And
is it because
how
my
much
skin is
more?
brown?
No, it's because
you look browner than me. Okay.
He would fight for an Islamic takeover here. What, for or against, Anne-Marie? He would obviously... what Islamic takeover?
Where is this takeover going to happen? How? From where? People come up with the most nonsensical Tommy
There's
Robinson.
not going to be. I know, absolutely. There is not going to be an Islamic takeover. This is all the fear mongering that Tommy Robinson, Katie Hopkins, and all these people are.
You know what?
They wouldn't
If you've
fight.
got a brain, if those look, these people who are coming up with these silly nonsense comments, okay, if you've got a brain and you actually try to get to know people, like talk to us, sit with us, eat with us, we won't poison you, okay?
I know.
You'll leave my house up. In fact, come to my home. My wife will cook. By the way, Britain's favorite dish is still a curry. Okay,
Oh
so
God, yeah, yeah.
you'll get the best curry in the world. My wife is a phenomenal cook. Okay, and you come to my house as my guest. I promise you, I won't behead you. I won't lock you in the cellar. Okay, we'll have a phenomenal conversation, and all of the hate that you've got in your one brain cell, okay, will dissipate and disappear, and you'll realize actually this guy's just like us. He's just got a slightly, in fact, she's darker than me. Okay.
Well, do you know? I think we should. I think we should end it on this
Yeah.
humorous note, and you know, I've really enjoyed, and hope people have enjoyed this chat. Actually, you're the first joint live I've done in a long time, and I've really enjoyed it. And maybe we can do
No,
some more. Maybe we can
it's been an
pick
absolute
us.
pleasure, and what
Yeah,
I'll try and do it because I can't see any of the comments, so I'm only going
yeah.
to
It's a
because of
shame.
this app, I can't see any of the comments, and I'm using my phone here, and I didn't. My laptop is not working very. I'm not very technical with laptops and all that, so I do everything on my phone. But it would be. I mean, I will go through the comments. Anybody who's got comments and questions to ask, look, feel free. If you've got hatred, bring it out and let's try and deal
Yeah,
with it. Okay, I will
yeah,
happily help you unburden yourself. Yeah, just bear in mind when you've got negative hatred, is it from your personal experience or is it from what you've been indoctrinated with? Is it from what you've
yes,
been read and you've been conditioned with? Because I'll tell you now, most of you, not you people here maybe, because I think Laura's audience, the majority are a different breed of people. They're very open-minded. There are people who saw through the bullshit when it came to the convid era. Okay, but for a lot of the people who are not that well acquainted with sort of finding the truth yet, most of you will find that I'm not a monster. I won't eat your babies when you're not looking. Okay, I'm not going to convert them into my religion. Okay, because it doesn't work like that. People come willingly to be Muslims,
I think
and
it's important that what you've done. I think it's important for you because there's so much in the news, so much information, misinformation, you know, all sorts of things. You know, like Anne Marie said when you said, you know, about the hatred, she said hatred is from Islam. Now you've just sat here explaining that it's a very peaceful religion, that things have been taken out of context, that there's many. If Islam was such a hateful religion, you guys, the whole how many Muslims in this country, there'd be
I think
chaos on the street.
there's about 4 million or something like that. So you'd
There'd
be in
be
a lot of
chaos on
trouble.
the street. We would be absolutely, we would be in a lot of trouble.
It'd be like the
You know,
zombie apocalypse. It'd be like the zombie apocalypse.
it
Okay,
absolutely would.
we'd
You
be
know,
we'd
but
be biting chunks
I,
out of you. Okay, so,
and I think you know, I think it, and I'm sorry if I haven't answered everybody's questions. I can't. I'm gonna have to go. We're gonna have to go now. But I think it's um really important that we try and get the message that everybody wants peace, everybody wants unity, everybody just wants to live their life with the freedom.
I just, you know what, I want what everybody else wants, which is peaceful life. I want to be able to come home, not to a burgled house, and I've been burgled
Yeah.
twice. Okay, real horrible experience. I don't want to hear that my neighbor was attacked or murdered or beaten up. Okay, I
Mm,
want to be able to walk the street at night, or my daughter or my wife to be able to go out in safety, just like you do.
mm, yeah.
Okay, and I want to be able to go to the shops, not be accosted, not be insulted, not be attacked. You know, by
Yeah.
the way, I did have a run-in with skinheads a long time ago when I was 16. Okay, and the police locked me up just before I go. Yeah, just one final story. I was battered the hell out of by the police, not the skinheads. We beat the skinheads up. Yeah, me and my brothers, four of us, we got attacked by about a group of 20 skinheads. Okay, and they all came out this well-known pub. It used to be called the Moonraker, right? And sorry, the Mermaid. The Moonraker was the one just here, but it was the Mermaid, and that it's an Aldi now. But it used to
Mm.
be a thuggish pub where all the skinheads used to gather. My sister was a nurse, and she would catch the bus from Solihull Town Centre and get off opposite the pub, and then catch the next bus home from there. And one day she said, "Look, I keep getting harassed and spit at. Okay, when I'm catching the late bus home, can you come to the bus stop outside the pub?" So myself and my brothers, we went, and there was like just as the bus, her bus would arrive at closing time. Back then, closing time was early. I can remember it was like 10 or 10:30 or something like that. And there's myself and my brothers are there, and this huge gang of literally skinheads come towards us, and it kicked off. But they didn't realize that myself and my brothers, we were all fighters, martial artists, kickboxers. And but my younger brother's also a champion boxer as well, or he was. He's retired and all that now. So we were very, very capable. And what happened was this whole fight lasted maybe 30 to 40 seconds. The police arrived in seconds and arrested myself and my brother. My other two brothers, I told them just walk away. They were younger. They were still 14 and 15. And these are grown men. I'm 16 and my brother's a few years older than me. But we've left them, some of these skinheads, in serious. I mean, these are all skinheads, by the way. They're all in the white jeans, the Doc
Yeah.
Martens with the red laces and the green bomber jackets with the orange linings and the short heads and tattoos and all that. Yeah, and we've absolutely made a mess of a whole bunch of these guys, and one of them was like serious, critically ill. Okay, punctured his lung. And so I got arrested along with my older brother, and we got taken back to the police station. I was not expecting this. The police at the station, at the back of the station, beat the shit out of me. Okay. They saw me as the main culprit because when I got in the car, okay, the policeman turned around to me and he actually said, "You packy bastard." I'm really taken aback because my dad has taught us to respect the police. I'm thinking, where's this coming from? In fact, before he said that, I said, "Oh, I just want to tell you what happened. We were attacked." He goes, "You were attacked." He goes, "How are they all on the floor?" Because there was a whole bunch of
Yeah.
them, like with broken bones and whatever. Yeah. Okay. I said, "Well, let me tell you, we were attacked." And he had a briefcase on his lap, and he turned around with the briefcase had the brass corners. He turned around, he threw it straight in my head. I got a scar still on my head. Okay. And it was pouring with blood. I had blood in my eyes. I was shocked. I was truly shocked. This is back in the this is 84, 85. Yeah, I'm 16 years, 84, I think it was, 85. I'm 16, nearly 17 years old. And he says, nobody, he called me a packy bastard. Okay. I'm really shocked because I've never heard this from a police officer before. Okay. Because I've never had any involvement I grew up on a council estate, but I've never had any involvement with the police like this before. And I just turned around. I said, I did. I said it. I said, "You white bastard," because I was angry. I'm bleeding up, And sorry, I'm not. That's when he then threw the briefcase in my eye, and it caught me in the corner of my eye here. And then he goes, "We'll deal with you when we get back to the station." I thought he meant just a normal processing. They dealt with me. They beat me up badly because I can't see. I've got blood in my eyes now, so I can't really see very well. Okay, and I'm also quite sort of dizzy from this impact of the briefcase. And they beat me up so badly, I couldn't see, my eyes were shut. And so eventually a doctor was called and they were giving charges of attempted murder, and they kept escalating things, because one of them was quite badly injured. And this whole case took a year to complete. In the end, the police were forced to drop the charges because of because they take all the photos off you, and the mug shots they
Yes,
take.
yeah.
My mugshot, my eyes are shut in this mugshot because I'm bruised really bad. They beat the crap out of me. But even then, and they were calling me a black bastard, a packy bastard, and all of this. Even then, I never took it to heart that this is what white people are all about. Although some people, they were coming, this is what white people are. I said, no, this is not my experience.
This is just individuals.
I said, this is just individual. I said, I've got white
Yeah,
friends. I've got a white
that's right. It's
grandmother.
individuals. Yeah.
Well,
Not everybody's like that.
Yeah. So not everybody's like that. I've got white relatives, literally white relatives.
And when you look back on those stories, right, doesn't it show you that there's a massive repeat in different ways of history where we are still constantly bloody hating on each other, for one reason or another, and it's never ending.
You got to
and
look
we're
at
meant to be more educated, more enlightened, and we're still falling for the divide and hate.
Well, you got to look at who's stirring the pot,
Exactly.
who benefits, who's milking it, who's making the money, who's getting. I mean, there's money to be made out of this. There's
Imagine
people who are.
if we didn't listen to the media. Imagine if we didn't listen to the media, we didn't turn it on. In fact, that's another thing we can do: a total blackout. Don't turn the media on for a whole day. But imagine if we didn't listen, if we didn't hear the story, if we didn't hear any of this, and we just lived with the neighbours, with our neighbour, and we lived. None of us would worry about what you follow,
Well, you know
what you
what? All
believe,
you
what
have to
church you
do,
go to.
if you think, for those who think I'm some barbarian devil hiding my true beliefs, you know what? Come and spend a day with me at my house. Yeah. And I promise you, I won't eat you. We won't cook you. We won't have you for dinner. Yeah. You'll have a great day with us. Okay. And you'll actually get to know people. See, the problem is the majority of people with these hate-filled views actually don't know it. They don't really know us. They have very minimal
No,
interaction. That's been my
exactly.
experience throughout most of my life. And by the way, the police officers who beat the shit out of me that day, around about it must have been about 5 or 6 years later, I actually bumped into one. Okay. Because my brothers who were boxers used to do door work, and it was a Christmas, and they said, look, we need extra hands, can you come? And the landlord of the pub was the police officer who kicked me in the head when I was down.
Wow.
Okay.
Well, maybe we don't need to know what you've done to him.
No, we didn't
or
do anything.
no, nothing.
He recognized me. He got really scared, and I said to him, "It's okay. I'm not going to do anything." He was scared. He genuinely was scared because I'm there with my two other brothers. My other brothers, they're also fighters. They're martial artists and boxers. And now he's thinking, "Oh my God, there's 3 of them
Yeah.
here." Yeah. And I said, "Don't worry about it. The past is the past."
Yeah.
Afterwards, we had a good chat, and he apologized, and he said that was the day. It was things were like that back in the day, and I forgave him.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know what? There's corruption in every religion. In every religion, you've got people that corrupt it. I mean, I'm from Italy, when you've got the Catholic religion, and then you've got the mafia that then goes and kills and steals and whatever, and then goes to the church and repents, and all is forgiven. Explain to me how that is.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But that happens.
It's look. All I'm saying to people is, look, live and let live. Don't be persuaded by people who create division. Make
Yes.
your own effort to get to know people. Reach out, come and
Yes.
speak.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
had people connect with me. I've had people meet with me and sit down and have coffee. And you know what? I remember back in the day, there was a guy who I knew. He was a soldier, and we were out in a bar once, and I stepped in because he was getting battered. Okay. And he didn't expect me to help him. The others had backed off because they thought these local thugs, they're big lads. I stepped in. Okay. He then spoke to me afterwards and he goes, you know what? I thought I didn't expect, he goes, I didn't expect the white lads to stay out of it, which I found very odd. Okay. Because they got a bit intimidated. We were outnumbered basically. Yeah. Okay. And he said, but you stepped in. He said,
Yeah.
he grew up in Southampton. At that time, there was no Asian community down there. And he says, you know, we don't have any Asian people or Muslim people down where I grew up. And he goes, you're the first one I've ever met. And he goes, you're all right, you are. Okay. He says, I had
Yeah.
no idea. He said, you know, his words were, I had no idea you were just like us.
Yeah.
And I said, well,
shocking, isn't it?
The thing was, yeah, and we became, good. And he understood.
Yeah.
I put myself at risk to protect him. Okay.
Yeah.
And I did suffer at risk. I mean, I took some blows as well. Okay. But the thing is, at the end of the day, we're all just humans.
We're all,
And
exactly.
all humans have got good. All humans have got bad.
Bad.
But if you want to go on bandwagons, it means you are you know what, if you're the kind of person who falls for jumping on bandwagons, you're actually a very weak character and you need to do some self-development work. Okay.
Absolutely.
I'm happy. In fact, I'm happy to give a free session. If you want to create a group session, yeah, of people who need to control, because that's the space I work in now. And I've been doing it for the last decade. I work in the self-development work. You know, I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins. I've supported the events.
Yes.
I'm a speaker trainer. I do motivational speaking. If you want to change your life, because living with hate is actually very toxic.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
it absolutely is.
It shortens your lifespan. I promise you, those people who live with hate, what happens is their lifespans are reduced. They get sick, they get ill. Okay. And this is a proven thing. And I'm willing to create and give my time to maybe run a workshop, yeah, where you can come for free. Okay. And we can actually get to know each other.
Yeah.
I actually get to know
I think that's great.
Yeah. I'll happily put a workshop on. Yeah.
That'd be beautiful.
In fact, I'd love to do it. In fact, the top 10 most sort of haters who are in the comments or whatever, who think, you know, I've got horns growing out of my head, you know, and saying, oh, he's a liar. You're the ones. I don't know who you are because I can't see the comments, but you're the ones I'm appealing to. Reach out. I won't eat you. I won't kill you. I won't slit your throat or any of that. You know, we'll spend a day together. I couldn't offer more than that. Yeah.
Exactly.
And if I'm a liar, I'm hiding. You're a pretty
You'll
intelligent.
You'll know.
Yeah. You'll work it out.
You can't all be great actors, because everyone that I've met who's follows the Quran and the religion and everything, they can't all be great actors. Not everyone can act that well.
Thank you.
Right. No, thank you so much. At the end of the day, the message, I believe, as we're trying to get here, is be careful who you follow, be careful what you fall for, because not everyone is there to lead you into enlightenment. They're there to keep you in a low vibration, low trap, basically continue to create hate and divide. Yes, we do have a problem. The country does have a problem, but the problem is not with your neighbour. And the solution is not following these controlled oppositions. However, if you are going to go to London, enjoy the day. That's it. That's all I can say. Thank you so much, Shukeel. I really appreciate your time, and I respect your faith as I do everybody else's faith. As again, I'm not religious, but I'm interested, and I've had discussions with all different religions, and I wanted to have a discussion with a Muslim so that we can.
Yeah, thank you so much for making the space and making. I'm sorry for overrunning. You know, but
no, it's fine. We're going to maybe we can do another one.
Yeah, but I'd love to. You know, and for those who've got something to say, whether it's supportive or not supportive, I'll go through all the comments. Please do.
Yes.
Feel free to reach out. You know, I'd happily even do a Zoom with, if there's 5 or 10 of you or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, ask me all the questions.
Perfect.
And I'll happily give the information of what we know, what we actually believe, and what my beliefs are. You don't have to worry. We're not going to come and invade you. Okay, there's not enough of us. Okay,
Just
so
if you just hold on the line while I end the live, and thank you everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and share it if you have. Okay, much love to you, and hope to see you again very, very soon. Ciao, ciao.
thank you so much.